everyone, Charlie Kojis.
Thank you, everybody. Keep it going for Adam, everybody. All right, I'm in a good mood today. I did some gossiping today. It's one of my favorite activities. I love gossip so much. I don't even need to know the other people that we're talking about to enjoy gossip. That's how fun it is. You can just be like, you know how Dave and Claire have been dating? I'm like, never heard of them. Keep going. Like, turns out that's not going so well. It's like, yeah, I saw that coming. That makes sense. I love gossip. I hate when people act like they're better than gossip, right? Like Eleanor Roosevelt, she once said that great minds talk about ideas, but small minds talk about people. I heard that lady's husband has polio. Pretty bad look for her, huh? Nobody just likes blankets that much, buddy. We're catching on. It's going to get down to -5 tonight, which we should not live here. We all live too far north. I don't understand how there's an entire country above this country. Did you guys know about that? That blows my mind. If you ever drive north for a few hours, you eventually get to a point where you feel like you're going to fall off the edge of the world. And then there's a whole country's worth of people who went, this looks like a good place to start. I like this as a southern border, personally. This will be our Los Angeles, Saskatoon. I don't understand why birds come back. Terrible decision making by the birds, right? Every winter they're like, well, this is the worst. We got to get out of here. And then spring rolls around, they're like, vacation's got to end sometime. Let's get back to it. You don't own property or anything. Your profession is bird. You can do that remotely. It's very flexible. I quit a job one time. I told my boss that I was going to be leaving, and she asked me if I was going to be able to give 100% effort over the next 2 weeks. I was like, do you honestly think that just because I'm leaving, I'm going to start working twice as hard? They offered me a standing desk while I was there, and I didn't know how to tell them that sitting down was the only part of my job I liked. I would give up my health insurance in a heartbeat if they let me lay down at work. Can you imagine being able to hold that over your coworkers? Like, oh, you have dental? I have a chaise. Which one of those sounds like a real benefit? Dental. I need dental, right? Last time I went to the dentist, he told me that if I start brushing my teeth more, eventually all my teeth were going to fall out. I was like, I got news for you, Doc. My teeth all fell out years ago. They grew back stronger than ever. You think I'm worried about that information? I cannot wait to see what the next generation of teeth will accomplish. Those things are going to be unstoppable. A little while back, I found a phone in the street one time. Decided to pick the phone up for a couple reasons. First reason, if someone found my phone, I'd want them to pick it up, try to get it back to me. Second reason is I just didn't have a whole lot else going on that day. Honestly, I saw the phone, I was like, thank God today is going to be different than yesterday. So I picked it up, I put it in my pocket, and I waited a few hours. And then eventually I got an incoming call from Mom. So I answered the phone, and I said hello, and she said, Maria? Which, I don't know what Maria sounds like, but you should be a better mother than that. I can't imagine I nailed the impression. So I told her, I was like, no, I had found your daughter's phone. I've been waiting for her to call, and her mom goes, oh, I haven't heard from her in a while. I'm really worried about her. And then she hung up the phone. And I went, oh, this isn't fun anymore. I have a dead girl's phone. And I have a pretty good alibi, but I'm still gonna be the guy in the first half of Dateline who they make you think did it for most of the episode. So they're just like, nope, it was the boyfriend, same as last week's. So at this point, I'm just scrolling through text messages trying to figure out who killed Maria. And then finally, I got a call from Maria. I answered the phone. I'm like, thank God you're alive. Moms are crazy, you know, come by later, pick your phone up. She came by, picked up her phone. I was very appreciative, very attractive girl for someone who'd just gone, and through a near-death experience like that. So I told that story to my coworker the next day, and he was like, "Oh man, you blew it. Perfect chance to get that girl's number." Which is only accurate logistically. Because that's an insane way to approach every interaction in your life when you're single, right? To be like, but I was single at the time, so I did have that moment where it's like, oh, that guy's right. I could have been weird right there. That would have been good. I could have made that a lot more uncomfortable than I did. Like when I was single, I remember I was dog sitting one time, and a friend of mine was like, "Oh, you should take the dog for a walk. Great way to meet girls." So I did, and I went, that would actually be true if I wasn't holding this bag of shit. I went on a few dates with a girl one time, like third or fourth date. She was like, "I don't really give you the wrong impression. Not really looking for anything long term." I was like, "Okay, well that's fine." And she also said, "I'm not sure if I'm comfortable doing like a friends with benefits kind of situation." And I had to go, "Oh, if it makes you feel any better, I don't really consider us friends." That did not make her feel better. That did not help the situation. I was at a party one time in college. Also at the party was a very attractive deaf girl. I was like, "Oh, I'd love to be able to approach the deaf girl, but I'm not primarily a visual medium." That doesn't play to my strengths, right? And then I had a few more drinks, and I'm like, well, let's find out what would happen. Let's get the rest of this story. So I walked up to her with no plan. If you're ever in this situation, I recommend a plan. That's what I learned. Fortunately, she had a friend with her who spoke deaf, so I was like, okay, perfect. I'll hit on her through her friend, right? Here's the deal. Hitting on a girl in any situation, brutal experience. Hitting on a girl through an interpreter is literally like having a third party mock you while you do it. The process goes, you say something to the girl that you're interested in, and you're like, oh, that wasn't too bad. And then you have to turn and watch someone act out how stupid what you just said was. Before turning back to the first girl and watching her sign back what you assume is, why did he just waste 3 people's time to tell me that? It got to the point where I was expecting her friend to pull me aside and be like, let's pretend we're having a conversation and brainstorm anything other than what you're saying right now. So I ended up going home with the deaf girl. I'm not sure how to explain that part of the story. I had a real nice shirt on that night. That could have been it. My theory is that her friend was doing some heavy editing on my side of the conversation. She was really jazzing up what I was giving her. And that's a weird experience, because if you have sex with someone who can't hear what you're saying, you find out the things that you would say during sex if the other person couldn't hear what you're saying. And there's information about yourself that you don't need to have. I'm married now. I got married over the summer. I got, new pair of pants shortly after that. Bit of a hot streak for me. We'd moved in together prior to getting married, which that feels like the more terrifying decision, to be honest. When you move in with the person that you're dating, you realize that to break up with that person, you need to dislike them more than you dislike moving. That's terrifying. She could have cheated on me 6 times, if I'm being honest. You ever clean an oven? Preposterous. I'm not gonna put myself through that. I have self-respect. I've never cheated in a relationship, but I feel like I get it, right? I can empathize when people do, because people always say the same thing when they cheat. They'll be like, thought it was gonna be worth it. Turns out, not worth it. Didn't see that coming. And I can relate, because about twice a week I will burn my mouth on hot cheese. That's the exact same decision-making process, just a different physical urge. It's just me going, well, this looks very exciting. What's going on over here? Oh, cause and effect. All right, well, nobody told me that would happen. Now my week is ruined. The whole process for getting married, proposing, getting engaged, getting married, every step of the process is incredibly embarrassing, right? It is. You have to get down on one knee, and then you have to go take pictures in a field, and then you have to dance with your mom. Every part of... And that's good. I'm glad they put those obstacles in the way. Otherwise, it'd be too easy. You're dating someone for a few weeks, and you're like, I could probably spend the rest of my life with this person. Someone's like, do you want to dance with your mom about it? It's like, not really. That's not where my head's at. like, all right, maybe give it another year. You'll get that urge eventually. Just wait. Had to buy a ring because her grandma's still alive. So not just free rings laying around. Part of why I was waiting out the pandemic to propose, to be honest. Wanted to see if that woman was going to get the vaccine before making a big ticket purchase like that. But timing doesn't always work out. What are you going to do, right? Tried to negotiate the ring price, which did not work. Because they've got this great tactic at the jewelers where they pretend that they don't know about negotiating. Foolproof tactic. There's no way around that. I was looking at a ring, I'm like, I like this one. I was kind of hoping to spend a little less than what that's listed at. And then the salesman goes, yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, okay, we'll just move on from my idea. I'll pay the price that you said. We won't have this awkward interaction. I like that too. No, let's go with that. I was like, this is a great diamond. Is there any wiggle room on this diamond? It's like, diamond's actually conflict free. It's like, okay, do you have any diamonds with like some conflict involved? I don't want someone to have had a bad day, but it is in the past at this point, so if I could benefit financially, that'd kind of get me out of a bind. Common thing people say, people who are married, they'll be like, I can't believe how lucky I am in life. I married my best friend. I can't believe I married my best friend. It's like, get some real friends, you loser. That's not how you're supposed to do it, right? You're supposed to marry your wife, and then your buddy Jeremy's your best friend, and your mailman remains your mailman, okay? You can't just start shuffling those people around, think any old order's gonna keep going okay in your life. When somebody says that they married their best friend, what actually happened is that they started dating that person and then just immediately mismanaged their social life. 2 years later, they looked around and they're like, oh, you're my only friend left. You're my best friend left. You're my best friend. I'm gonna marry my best friend. But you hear that, nothing people say. They're like, I can't believe how lucky I am. I can't imagine a better version of my wife. I just can't imagine that. It's like, how bad is your imagination? You can't picture another person having straighter teeth and owning a jet ski? It's real easy to do. Take the person that you love and picture them owning more things that you love. It's a simple mind exercise. One of the big pieces of advice that you get is never go to bed angry. It's everyone's secret to a long, healthy marriage. From my limited experience, I would give you the opposite of that advice. When you're angry, just go to bed, okay? That is the solution to that problem. I don't know about all of you. I don't wake up the next morning angry. I wake up hungry, and then I have to remember that I was angry. I'm like, well, that seems like a lot of effort for Sunday morning. And then my wife wakes up, and I go, how you feeling today? And she says, hungry. I'm like, that's incredible. We're on the same team again. I don't know how we pulled this off, but Dr. Phil McGraw would be impressed. This is groundbreaking stuff. We've been together like 7 years now, which this was my first long-term relationship. She'd been in a long-term relationship prior to us getting together. So when we started dating, she would occasionally, she'd compare me to her ex-boyfriend in like a positive way that would make me feel more confident about what I was doing. And then after a little while, I realized she had been comparing me to her ex-high school boyfriend. And that stopped making me feel good in the slightest. I'd be like, oh, I'm better at communicating my emotions than he was? Yeah, we didn't let him vote, so. I resolved puberty 15 years ago. I'm not taking a lot of credit for being a more attentive lover than he was. I see where he was coming from on that, to be honest. She just had a birthday. I'm not a big gift guy. That's not one of my things in relationships. One of your love languages can be receiving gifts. That can be the way that you experience love, which that should not count. If you're looking at the list of ways that you can get love and you choose stuff, that is a bad sign. You're going on that list being like, I don't want to spend any quality time with this person. I definitely don't want any physical touch. But I would appreciate a Best Buy gift card. That is a different emotion. When we started dating, she would do this thing. She'd go out, she'd buy a lot of nice, expensive things, and then I kind of had to remind her that she didn't really have any money. It was a fun dynamic we had early on, which that's not, lots of people do that, right? That's not specific to her. That's actually why credit cards exist. It's because there's a section of society where they're like, I think I'm supposed to have a lot of nice, expensive things. And then society goes, yeah, we did the numbers, and that is not true. That is not how that math works out on our end. And then those people go, I'm pretty sure that is true. I'm pretty sure you're going to redo those numbers by the 21st of the month. That's my guess. I'm willing to bet 18% that I do get a couch that reclines. I'm doing all right. I'm at a point in my life where I get to have some nice things, right? I can go to a restaurant and order an appetizer. That's a pretty good place to be in life. The waiter comes by and he's like, do you want some food before you start eating? I can be like, yeah. I want to ease into this process. I didn't come to a Chili's because I was prepared, okay? I'm right there, my appetizer level, all right? I'm not one of these dessert income bracket people. Don't get me wrong. They come by with the dessert menu. I'm like, I know how much a gallon of ice cream costs. I'm not falling for the scam. I get it, though. I'd love to be there. Quit telling people not to play the lottery, right? Anytime someone buys a lottery ticket, someone who understands probability will explain to them why they just wasted their money, as if it's not that person's best chance of acquiring $80 million tomorrow. You have a more practical investment that results in me owning multiple jungle cats? No? Okay, well, then I'm gonna have a little fantasy here. Let's let me play this out. People are just trying to have fun, and then people overstate how unlikely it is to win the lottery. They're like, the chance of winning the lottery are the same as the chance of getting struck by lightning and attacked by a shark on the same day. It's like, that's never happened to any person. Someone won the lottery last Tuesday, okay? If someone had also had the shark lightning day, they'll mention that on the news. They're not keeping that information from us. The news has an agenda. I can't imagine that's it. I know, I'm not taking a lot of chances in life, to be honest. I don't believe in reincarnation personally, but if reincarnation turns out to be true, I feel pretty confident that I'm coming back as essentially the same guy. I'm doing a real as-expected job with what I've been dealt. Not really moving that needle up or down. Wouldn't shock me to find out I'm about version 50 of this person who's just been showing up for a few thousand years, being like, buckles on shoes? Sounds like fun. Let's try it. Triangle-shaped hats? Love it. All right, I'm not going to rock the boat. Let's go with your idea. At some point, I'm going to end up as the guy in the documentary who doubted the band. Right? Anytime a band makes it big, they're all still mad at someone from their past. With and then that guy told us that we shouldn't play the drums with 2 loaded pistols. And 1 year later, Guncussion started its world tour. And I would at least like to be afforded the opportunity to also be in the documentary, to be like, okay, I was wrong, but you can see where I was coming from, right? That wasn't like a musical visionary, but I was thinking about safety. No, I'm the bad guy. Okay. I suggested a scary hammer instead. They didn't like that? All right, well. I've had the same haircut since the time that I was a sophomore in high school, and I accidentally asked for a different haircut. That's the last time I looked different. I went to the barber, I told him I wanted a buzz cut, and he asked me same length all the way around or flat on top, and I froze. I had not realized that there were multiple variations of buzz cuts, so I had to try to remember what haircut I had, and I got it wrong. I told him flat on top, and then he turned me away from the mirror, and I sat there for 10 minutes being like, pretty sure I nailed that one. That seems correct. And then he turned me back around to face the mirror, and I went, oh, I would have noticed. I would have known if I'd had a flat top up until this point in my life. That was a difficult evening, because I had to go back to high school the next morning, decide what my story was going to be once I got there. If I was going to pretend like this was a decision I made in life. I'm just like, yeah, I decided to start taking things more seriously at 15. Figured this is what I needed, more structure, right angles, you know? Or I could just own it and go, turns out I didn't know how to describe the top half of my head before yesterday. I still don't think you need to care about that kind of thing. Your haircut is a silly thing to care about. Until recently, my roommate cut my hair once a month in exchange for a sandwich made of meats that we both owned, okay? It's a simpler way to live your life. Recommend you all do that. I'm not impressed by people who dress well either, right? I don't think that's a skill. That's just a decision you can make. If I wanted to dress better, I could just Google cool guy and then go to the image search and buy whatever he's wearing, okay? I'm cool guy now. It's that easy. I don't make that decision every day because the few times that I get a compliment on what I'm wearing, I just respond with 40% off. That's the only way that I'm comfortable with that. I don't actually buy my own clothes at this point. Like I said, I've been in a relationship for 7 years now. So once a year on my birthday, my wife will just kind of test the boundaries of what patterns I'm on board with. That's how I acquire all new shirts for the last 7 years. Every year she'll be like, what do you think about little anchors? Can we do little anchors this year? I just got on board with lines last year, okay? We can't start jumping right to nautical shapes. There's gotta be some steps in between. This is too radical. I had somebody ask me what my favorite color was the other day. I told him that I am an adult. I've made peace with all the colors at this point in my life. I'm not still taking sides on that issue. Like, more things should be green. That's not one of my causes at 30 years old, okay? If your favorite color is not one of the first 6 colors that you learned, you've overthought that question. I'm a big chartreuse fan, personally. It's what was going on in your life when you felt that should be part of your personality? Like, we used to take all these personality tests on the computer in high school. You guys remember these? You go on a computer, and the computer would ask you questions about yourself, and then it would just kind of, you'd tell it the information, and it would just repeat that information back to you. It was the best. If you've never heard of the concept of introspection, I highly recommend having a computer tell you what you just told it. The computer would be like, do you like going outdoors? You're more of like an indoor person. And you'd be like, I'm kind of an indoor person. And the computer goes, seems like maybe you're an indoor person. It's like, I never thought of it that way. That kind of really shifts my perspective on things. But they have these now, they're all over the internet where they're not just like, what kind of personality you have. They're like, there are all these fun versions where they're like, what kind of Mexican food are you? And then you get to take it and you're like, oh, I am spicy. That does sound like me. But they're never honest. They're always the most positive interpretation of who you are. They're not just straight up with you. You take it and it's like, oh, you're mole. Not everyone likes you, but it's only because of how complex you are. And then you're like, yeah, that's probably why people don't like me. That makes sense. And it's never straight up with you. It's never just like, you're old beans. Yeah, you're not Mexican cuisine. Just plate of old beans. It took this test 3 times trying to get chimichanga. That's old beans. We've seen this. Motorcycle gangs. That's just a group of people who forgot why motorcycles are cool. Right? Why are motorcycles cool? Because you are alone. That is the entire appeal to the motorcycle. No one's original vision when they buy a motorcycle is it's gonna be me, the open road, and 12 other guys wearing matching vests. That's not where that dream began. Then people get a motorcycle, they meet these other guys, like, these guys are awesome. We all get together, we bare knuckle box at the dive bar off the highway. That's great. You made friends, okay? Get a van. Stop pretending this has anything to do with the motorcycles. Just admit you have people with common interests in your life. Make a practical decision to carpool, okay? Ice cream samples. Is that you people? You the people asking for ice cream samples? Just stop it, okay? You know what it tastes like. Stop pretending that you don't know. See it all the time. It's like, oh, cashew delay. Is this one cold too? It's like, look. You've tasted all 3 of the things in that flavor. If you can't put the pieces of that puzzle together on your own, don't admit that to another adult. You're buying an ice cream cone. This is your moment of whimsy for the week. You don't need to be mitigating risk right now. If you can't afford to blow your decision on flavor of ice cream, reconsider the whole trip to the zoo. You're like, oh, rainbow sherbet, what does this one taste like? It tastes exactly like it looks. It tastes like a clown's wig. I've gotten better at a lot of that stuff at this point, right? Like, I know how to order what I want in a restaurant. took me a long time to develop that skill. First rule, if you're in a big group of people, doesn't matter who the waiter makes eye contact with first, you can just start talking. You just yell out the good entree before anybody else can, and then you get to watch a ripple of disappointment go across the table as people start frantically substituting out their sides to maintain individuality. That's the first trick. So I can order what you want. Don't order what the person you wish you would want. I've almost made that mistake. I was in a restaurant once, cheapest entree on the menu was duck. I had that moment where I'm like, maybe I'm a duck guy. What stopped me, right? I could be a highfalutin duck guy. And then I left the restaurant. So I know who I am. I need a restaurant that has a burger somewhere on the menu. I feel safe with that option. And all the follow-up questions, medium rare, fries, I'm ready to go. I don't even know what the follow-up questions are for duck. How do you want that prepared? That really seems like the cook's call. Does he not know? Is he asking? I'm gonna go with like a chicken. That's as useful as I can be in this situation. It's not my area of expertise, right? I own a cast iron pan. It's my most prized of all my pans. The main appeal to a cast iron pan is that whatever you make in the pan tastes like all of the previous things that you've made in that pan. That is the big selling point of cast iron. If you're a good cook, that's very exciting. If you're like me and you're just trying to figure out how to cook for the first time, you own a haunted pan. Every time you go to the kitchen, you're like, I'm gonna try a new recipe today. Pan's like, remember the time you did that ketchup production? It's like, okay, well, just trying to make French toast here. Don't really need the ghost of brisket pass getting involved. This doesn't seem fair. Let's get a round of applause for Ray working the bar tonight. Yeah. What you'll notice in bars now is that if a girl gets up to go to the bathroom, what she'll do is take a coaster, put it on top of her drink. Fun thing that I like to do is take a pill, put it right on top of the coaster. And then she gets back from the bathroom, she's like, look at that, it worked. It's a perfect system. The coasters are doing their jobs. Right. I got COVID over the summer. I went out 2 years, successfully avoided COVID, and then eventually I just got too curious, right? Just had to know what all the buzz is about. It's like, this might be my last chance. I got COVID in Greece, the Feta variant. Getting sick in another country is a great way to just hate that country immediately. It's such a shortcut, because when you're on vacation, you don't have to work, so everything about the country is incredible. You're like, oh my God, espresso Fredo? What a culture. These people know how to live. They know what they're doing. And then the moment that you can't breathe through your nose, you're like, brew coffee, you idiots. But your buildings are old, knock them down and install modern plumbing. What is wrong with you? NyQuil. I don't know the translation. It's a brand name. We don't have translations for brand names, okay? Stop offering me sleeping pills. I want sleepy juice for my face. How does that not make sense? Who let you be a pharmacist if that doesn't make sense to you? None of my blankets are here. I want to go home. Good vacation, though. Fun honeymoon. Can't complain too much, right? I had a good pandemic, relatively speaking. I don't hang out at the hospital on a regular basis, so I just kind of zoned out there for a year. Wasn't too bad. I was so good at just turning my brain off. A thing started happening where my wife and we would be watching TV, and then the person on the TV would say something, and she would turn to me and she'd go, hey, what did that guy say? And I'd go, oh, I don't know. And then she'd go, were you about to ask me what he just said? And I'd go, till you brought it up, I didn't really realize that I didn't know what he just said. Kind of forgot we were watching TV there for a little while, so appreciate you keeping me on my toes. This is useful. This is good having you here. It was great living with someone during COVID. That made it so much easier, but pretty early on into the pandemic, we had to address the standard for what was worth a conversation in our household. Because we were having too many conversations. A thing would happen where we'd be in the living room, And I would get up, I would leave, and then I'd come back about 5 minutes later, and my wife would go, "Hey, where'd you go?" And after a few weeks of that, I'd be like, "Look, we have 4 rooms in this apartment. If I don't return to the couch with a tub of hummus, let's leave it up to the imagination where I could have been. I have so few activities left at this point in my life." I got nervous once I realized how excited I was getting for my 2 p.m. sparkling water. That's when I really started to panic. 'Cause every day, like 1:15, I'd be like, "Oh, it's coming up quick." Well, only 45 more minutes, you know what that means. Get that little hint of pomegranate. Like, "Ooh, maybe I'll put it on ice today. That could be fun." Huh? And then about midsummer, I was like, this can't be it. If one of the top 5 highlights in my day is the mild suggestion of pomegranate, I'd rather admit that I have 4 highlights in my day. I can't keep pretending that the bubbles are a big part of my life. It was a bad look for the vaccine scientists when we found out that they hadn't been doing anything for the last 20 years. Right, they started research on the mRNA vaccine in 2001, and they could not make any progress. And then COVID hit. We're like, okay, turns out no one's going to leave their homes until you guys finally figure this out. And the scientists were like, "Oh, is this important again? Give us like 5 months. We'll stay till 5 every day next week and just knock this thing out." It doesn't seem that hard, to be honest, but no one's been asking questions for a while. So. I hope I haven't given you guys the wrong impression. I am normally a very optimistic guy. I get invited anywhere, I'll just bring a swimsuit. Nobody said this wasn't a pool party. That's got to be your mentality in life. Like a while back, I found a bulge on my waistline one time, and I'm the opposite of a hypochondriac because my reaction was just go, "A bit of a shape like that." I bet we all just have bulges we're not talking about, right? And then a few weeks went by, and I decided I'm just going to check with my doctor and make sure that he's also shaped like that. That feels responsible. So I called, I scheduled a physical. I went in, and up top, the doctor asked me if I had any concerns. And I told him no. I've been to physicals before. I know they make you take your pants off regardless. So I didn't want to tease it. That felt like it'd be an unnecessary move to be like, "I got something good coming up, but let's wait until the second half." That's when this thing's really going to get exciting. So eventually got to that point, took my pants off very casually. It's like, "By the way, it's like an asymmetry going on down here. What do you think that's about?" My doctor's like, "Yeah, you have a hernia. Like, really obviously. You didn't need to see a doctor to find that out. You could have just asked anyone you know. Do you have an accountant? Same diagnosis." So he asked me, he's like, "Have you been in a lot of pain recently?" I told him, just like a normal amount of pain. And then I had to read his facial expression and go, "Oh, is there not a normal amount of pain? You don't just hurt usually also? That's not the system?" So I'm like, "Hernia, sounds rough. What do? We just wait this one out, right?" He's like, "No, you have to have surgery." I was like, "Oh, maybe a topical cream instead? Is that an option?" Because the thing about surgery, even for a minor surgery, they will make you fill out paperwork for what happens in case you go into a coma. I was like, "Oh my God, I didn't even consider a coma. That sounds ideal." I'm rooting for that now. Have any of you ever been in a place in your life where you just want to take a nap for a few months? Know that when you wake up there'll be balloons? I want to be clear, I like life, but the worst part about life is it just keeps happening. It's just so constant. If you could take a break and die for a little while, you'd make that decision every time. No questions asked. You'd come back, someone would offer you a graham cracker, you'd be like, "Oh my God, I forgot about graham crackers. These things are fantastic. I'm so glad I took that year off." I'm not actually worried about dying. I'm worried about my funeral. This is probably going to be a terrible funeral. I've never been to one and gone, "They nailed it. I got to get their guy." It's like for a wedding, people spend a full year planning out their wedding. They'll hire a professional wedding planner. Your funeral gets thrown together at that brief window when people are still sad, and all the creative decisions get left up to a guy whose life choice was funeral home director. What are the chances the two of us are going to have the same taste in candles? You leave it up to that guy, and you end up with an open casket funeral. I have no idea why. That's part of the mourning process. To have people come by and be like, that's Charlie, just gotta remember him. He always did love putting on a suit and taking a nap. I realize you can put that kind of thing in your will, but I keep putting mine off. I only work well on deadlines, and my doctor just refuses to guess. He's very focused on the hernia aspect of things. I'm like, let's go big picture here. When is this all gonna be over? My current will is just a note that says, see Paul Newman's will. That means that if I die, that's not the worst thing to happen to my family that week. It's them finding out that they have to start a sauce company in my legacy with nothing but the $1,500 I left them and a picture of me near some herbs and my marinara recipe, which just says ragu plus butter. Hey, I got a dog. My wife and I got a dog. My wife has anxiety, so the doctor prescribed a dog. That's not what I was expecting. I thought he'd have medical advice, if I'm being honest. The dog's heart is riddled with worms. It's kind of what she's known for, kind of her main feature. Mostly a price-based decision, if I'm being honest, just kind of where the market was at dog-wise. But what that means is if the dog gets too excited and her heart rate gets too high, the dog will die. 'Tis the want of the worms, apparently. So now my wife and I both have anxiety, but just about the dog now, so it's a step forward. The main reason to own a dog is that so you come home, the dog sees you, and gets excited, and then you feel good about yourself. And that is not allowed in our house. I come home, dog gets excited, I'm like, no, bad Mandy, you back to the couch. If you love us this much, you will die, so go lay down. That's your one trick. That's what you get to do. All right, I bummed you guys out with the dog stuff. She's a very happy dog, honestly, which is incredible, because sometimes I'll hit her in the head with a door. And she's still just happy the next minute. Not on purpose, obviously, but dogs are always hanging out next to doors, and they're always betting it's a pull, and sometimes you bash them right in the skull. Doesn't affect her worldview in the slightest. I say I'm sorry, but she doesn't know what that word means. It's not associated with food. So I could just be saying, you deserve this. I wanted this to happen. You brought this on yourself. And then her reaction is to be like, yeah, I don't know, probably my favorite person. Not really sure what the door thing's all about, but top two for sure. Had to take her to the vet recently. Our vet does this thing where when she gets back from the vet, we will have a note written about her visit to the vet, but it is written from the point of view of my dog, which, good for the vet. If she's still looking for a creative outlet and she found one at this point in her life, I'm happy for her. So we'll get this letter where our dog's like, I went to the vet today. I saw my friends. They gave me sleepy gas. It's like, all right, great. And then about 2/3 of the way through the letter, my dog will stop and clarify that the advice that she is about to give me is actually not her opinion, but the opinion of a medical professional. As if they're worried I'm going to be reading this letter and be like, that doesn't sound right. You're just going to prescribe yourself gabapentin? Not falling for this one. You're not even one of the smarter breeds. You just like the way that tastes. Quit trying to change the subject how you can use the printer now. That's not all right behavior. I was hanging out with a friend of mine and her daughter a few weeks back. My friend was explaining to her daughter who she was and was not allowed to accept a car ride from. And because I happened to be the other person in the room, I was the example of who she was not allowed to accept a car ride from. I don't know if any of you have ever been in this situation. It's about the most uncomfortable thing that you have to agree with? I don't get a counter argument there. I can't be like, well, now that your mother's left the room, I think I have some very compelling reasons as to why you could get in my car. I think you're here on my side of the conversation. I make some great points here. I can't do that. I have to be like, your mother's correct. Even I may just be biding my time. Who knows? I'm not stealing children, though, right? I'm a good guy. It's not the only thing you need to do to be a good guy, but that helps. Watching the news, on the news, they had a picture of a missing baby. Like, if you see this baby, contact the authorities, let someone know. I was like, you know what? If I see any extra baby, I'll let someone know. That's how good of a guy that I am. I've never seen a loose baby in the street. I'm just like, been like, nah, it doesn't look like the one the news wanted back. Good luck with the manholes, baby. Got more important issues out here. I attend an Irish dance over the holidays. You gotta support all the arts, not just the good ones. At the start of the event, the person who was emceeing the dance explained that the reason that the Irish keep their arms by their side is that the Irish used to be slaves, so they weren't allowed to have any fun. They had to be very still with their upper body in case someone saw them through a window. They didn't want anyone to know that they were dancing, which I tend to believe most dance facts that I hear. That was one of the more questionable ones, if I'm being honest. But that means if that guy was telling the truth, there was a time in history when there would be a couple slave owners sitting around having dinner, and one of them would turn to the other guy and be like, hey, what do you think the slaves are up to tonight? And that guy would go, oh, good question, let me check. And then they would just turn and look through a window and see 20 Irish people all just facing the same direction, just in unison going. And then he'd turn back to the first guy and be like, yeah, it doesn't look like they're having too much fun in there. Yeah, just doing that synchronized head bob they do every night. The one with all the stomping they think we can't hear. I was a B student in both high school and college, which that's the correct grade, right? I would have teachers growing up who'd be like, Charlie's a B student. If he applied himself, he could be an A student. I'd be like, as long as we're on the same page about that, that's fine. My first ever college class I had was a speech class. Day one of the speech class, I went in, and the professor told us that our first assignment was going to be to go out into the real world and interview a public official about a controversial topic. And I decided to not do that. Because I figured college is supposed to prepare you for the rest of your life. I don't really want to have that kind of interaction for the rest of my life. So instead what I did, I just made up a bunch of fake quotes about what I assumed the on-campus smoking debate was about. Because in my mind, I'm like, well, those are quotes. So if those aren't accurate, technically, that's not even my fault. That's the person who I said those things that should have done a better job on this assignment. So day two, I handed in the quotes, and the professor informed us that the research we'd just done was going to be the basis for the speech we'd give at the end of the semester, which would be worth 80% of our grade in the course. So my freshman year of college was just an escalating series of lies. At one point, I had to write a thank you note thanking Alderman Brandon Green for the help he'd given me on my research, and that was just the name of my randomly assigned freshman roommate, because our dorm was the only address in the city that I knew. So I had to give the speech. I said, smoking's bad. People were like, that sounds right. Went okay, right? And then the professor told us that we had to go to the computer lab outside of class. We had to watch a video of ourselves giving the speech, and we had to write down what grade we felt we earned on the speech. And I decided to also not do that. I was like, this isn't the point in the semester where I'm going to learn where the computer lab is. So instead, I just gave myself a B, which I felt I earned in my own way. And then the professor emailed the entire class, and she said, the grade you gave yourself on the assignment is the grade that you receive in the course. I was like, oh my God, this woman was doing the same thing that I was doing, just at a much higher level. This was the PhD version of not taking her course seriously. That was the most influential professor I had in all of college. All right, that's going to do it for me. You guys have been great. Thank you all for coming out.